This is Discuss EDM episode 2 with myself, Matt Jadon. My guest today is Mr. Aaron Hibell. Aaron, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm very good.
Good. We had some technical difficulties and we're doing without video because I have shite internet at home and we're currently on a FaceTime call and recording our own little bit. So this should be wonderful. If you don't know who Hibell is, basically he initially made an impact in the EDM scene by doing remixes of pop tracks and kind of like a tropical housey type thing that was popular in the sort of 2015, 2016 era. He then started to go on and do productions for other massive names in the pop industry. So people like Olly Murs, Sam Felt, Little Mix. Who else have you worked with? Britney Spears, right? Bastille.
I did a remix for Britney Spears.
Yeah, mate. All sorts of stuff. But yeah, like I said to you just before we recorded, like what I want to do really is just do a bit of a deep dive in yourself. Like you're a bit of a ghost on social media, like very mysterious. There's not a lot of content out there on yourself. I know you've done a few interviews, like written ones for publications that I had a look at. But in terms of like, you know, video interviews and podcasts and stuff, you're not really out there. So this could be like a good chance for people who like your music and like yourself to learn a bit more about your background, really. So I guess the first question I got for you is, what were your music interests like growing up as a kid? Like, do you have like a musical family? Did you have any influence from your parents or like an older sibling or anything like that?
No, I just straight up. I didn't really like growing up. I played guitar at school, and that was kind of like my main thing. And then like listening to music growing up, like I didn't really have like I'm the oldest of my siblings, my brother and sister, and there's like no one really like giving me like a music taste to kind of like listen to. So I can't remember really. I was just like developing stuff. But then I got to about I think it was like 16 or so, and I think I was just discovering like indie music or something, because my girlfriend at the time was really really into that. So I just kind of listened to it. I was like, that's kind of cool. But it wasn't until I think I was in the car on the way back from like a hockey match or something, and it was like Saturday afternoon where like Radio 1 Dance Anthems was on, and I heard this track by Alesso called Years.
Yes.
And like
what a classic.
I literally just like freaked out. I was like, what the hell? And like I like Shazammed it or whatever, and then I got back home and I was like listening to it like on non-stop. I was like, wait, what is this music?
Yeah.
So it was kind of crazy, to be honest. And then from there I was like, I need to find more tracks like this. So I basically just like looked up trying to like finding tracks like this, and then I found like loads of like sets on Tomorrowland and stuff, and like it was just like a gold mine of like content. It was actually kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what sparked it, I think, like my initial interest in kind of like the dance music world.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
And how did that kind of transfer into you not just enjoying it, but like, I actually want to have a crack at this myself? Like, I think I can, like, or even just, I think this would be fun to mess around with and see if I could do it.
I think I was listening to all these tracks, and well, I mean, I was definitely interested in becoming like a DJ or something, just like watching all these sets at Tomorrowland. So I think I bought a DJ decks or whatever, and I was like just like doing mixes and stuff, because I mean initially I thought that the music was made on the deck. So like
that's better than most people, mate. Most people think there's like a few buttons and then you have a track, just like
yeah, I don't know, but basically I got a deck, and then I was just like making mashups, and basically I think I was just listening to these tracks and being like, I really like this track, but I wish they did this bit differently. or like I think that drop could be so much better, or like there's melody if it went like this at the end. And I think that was the kind of thing that made me want to like just try it, because I was like, well, I've got all these ideas, like I think I can make something pretty good like this too. So I think that's what initially just sparked my interest in actually producing.
It's interesting you kind of had that critical ear quite early on, because I've noticed that when I've done production sessions with you, and I'm sure other people would notice this as well, is that you're so tuned in, you have like an idea in your head. It's very little, well, I guess you experiment like we all do, but you quite often seem to have an idea like quite clear in your head, and it's just the process of getting to that, like trying different sounds, trying different melodies until you hit that vision. Would that be right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it happens like every time, but often I think the most successful tracks I make is ones where I have a vision for it, and like I'll have heard a track and been like, that's really cool, but what if I did it like this? And then in my head I know where I want to get to, and there's obviously a lot of experimentation on the way, because sometimes I'll have an idea in my head and it'll kind of evolve or whatever, but yeah, often I think for me the best way to like work is having like a really clear vision. I mean, I've also made tracks which like I go in with one vision, it comes out like something else, but like generally speaking, I think I work well like that, to be honest.
No, absolutely. I mean, do you remember the first track we ever tried where we were trying to do, what was it? It was like an Anjuna deep track, like a trancey one, and we were like, yes, we're going to remake this.
It was called Jason Ross Atlas. Yeah,
mate.
And I think we just remade it, and we're like, okay.
Yeah, just fully remade it, and I was like, okay, well, we probably can't use that, but fuck it.
Yeah,
we'll see if we can get away with it. So I just want to delve into actually how we met. So we did a DJ competition back in 2015 for. It was one of our university's like club promoters. They used to do them all the time. It was part of their like freshers. They used to do freshers week, and then they used to do like a freshers reboot in January, just a way for them to make more money, I guess. And we turned up at this DJ competition at a club called Sub 89 in Reading.
Sub 89.
Yeah. I bet this is bringing back memories. But we.
I was actually speaking to my manager about this the other day.
Oh, for real?
He was like, how did you... Yeah, I don't know.
That's so funny. Mate, I used to love those DJ competitions because you get people like yourself and I who had a decent enough knowledge of like how to do a mix and how to like work decks. And I think you brought your own anyway, so you were pretty comfortable in working on them. But you always used to get these kids who would have bought like these really cheap, shitty Pioneer decks, done a few pre-drinks, and then they're like, oh yes, I'm ready to do like a full gig now, like set me up. And then they hear this DJ competition, they invite like all their friends over, and then they see all this expensive Pioneer equipment, and they're like, what the fuck, how do I do this? Where's Tractor? Where's like whatever the other one is?
I remember
Serato.
that night all the DJs were actually decent.
Yeah, that was that particular evening was not a bad one. I did a few more after that where there were like kids that turned up with like USBs where they hadn't put it through like record box, and like they used to just panic. I used to feel like quite sorry for them. And there was one kid that like turned up and the decks weren't linked, and he literally like brought just one USB, and he was like, oh no, like why is it not showing up in the other one? I was like, bro, you've always got to come with two USBs. I think it was like the learning ground for a lot of these guys. Some of them I still know. Some of them are like doing quite well and actually coming up to like being professional DJs. But yeah, that was a fun one. Yeah, I
mean, I didn't do any others after that because obviously I dropped out of uni. But I just remember that particular one was pretty competitive. Like, everyone was like decent DJs and whatever, but I think it was interesting because it was the first time where I've actually met anyone else who does like music, like dance music, and like I've never met anyone else who made it, so it was quite a cool experience. Like speak with like-minded people.
Absolutely, yeah. And I said this on my like first little podcast episode when I was talking about you potentially being on. I was saying that you were definitely the first person I'd met at university who had like a decent standard of production. That was like the main thing. Like I'd met other DJs that were quite good in clubs and stuff, but every time they were like, oh yeah, do you want to come and listen to my music or like what I've been working on, I'd go and listen, and it would just be like really like entry level stuff, and I was like, oh, like I wasn't by any means a great producer at the time, but I'd obviously had a few years experience under my belt. And then you showed me that Radio Gaga remix, the one that you did like literally donkeys years ago, one of like your first proper tracks, I think. And I was literally blown away by it, mate. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, how long have you been producing for? Because it sounded really polished and really just, you know, like something I could hear on the radio. And then you were like, oh, I've been doing it for, you know, maybe a few months. And I was like, a few months? What the fuck?
Yeah, I think I probably started in like, it was like September, October. I think I showed you a track in January or something.
Yeah, so you literally only started like the beginning of that uni year, and then by January you were already making like, I mean, I don't know, I've probably still got it on my hard drive somewhere, mate. I could like play a little excerpt of it in a story or something, but it was like, it was polished. And I used to play that when I did other freshers gigs, like just like other universities. I used to play that. I used to go down well, mate. I played it at York University, and like everyone was just going nuts on it.
Oh, I do remember you telling me that. Yeah, that's kind of cool. That's quite cool.
Yeah, it was good, man. And I guess from then we started to do some studio sessions. We started to like mess around on stuff. We actually came up with a few tracks that are on my Spotify. There's one called Coriolis, and there's one you did like a little edit of one of my tracks as well that we put out.
That's still one of my favorites. Like, these into the HBX edit.
Yeah, that's right, mate. That's
of Atlantis. Did you
Atlantis.
put that out?
Yeah, that's on my Spotify. But yeah, mate, I still have random people asking me for like the full mix, you know, like the unedited mix and stuff like that, because they want to play it out, especially in like a lot of the Asian countries. Like progressive house seems to still be quite a like, even that particular like 2015 type sound still seems to be quite popular over there. A lot of those kids like keep asking me for that file, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, I guess moving on from that, like, so we obviously did our studio sessions, we worked on some stuff, and then over the summer break, that's when you kind of had that first initial track that kind of, I guess, blew you up initially, right? The Let You Go remix. Yeah. And that gained some momentum pretty quick. I remember you showed me it, and it was like already on a couple of tens of thousands listens. I was like, this is dope, this is sick. And then it just kind of blew up super quick from there.
Yeah. That was a kind of crazy one, because I remember I'd been making so many tracks throughout that year, and I'd show you them, and you'd be like, you should post this on SoundCloud, and I was just like, no, it's not ready yet. It's like, I was just like, yeah, it's not ready. I don't have like a vision or anything for it. And then I remember I made this one, and I was like, okay, this sounds kind of like, doesn't really sound like, I mean, it sounded a bit like Kygo, but it was kind of a blend of like progressive house and Kygo. And I don't think anyone had done that sound before. So I was like, oh, okay, I think I'm going to post this one. And so, yeah, I posted it. It kind of like, it did pretty well. Yeah, and just kind of like all started from there, I guess.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember it being sick, mate, because like you said, Tropical House had really just started to blow up in 2015 for anyone who like remembers that era, and like Kygo and I'm trying to think of other artists, but like that sound was really popular, like the kind of like the tropical lead sound, and you kind of just done your own thing with it, and I think people just really latched onto that. They were like, whoa, this is cool, like it's kind of progressive, but it's at like 120 BPM, so it's still got that slow poppy tropical vibe. And that people just really like latched onto that. And I remember you did like a few other tracks that really blew up around that time as well, in that similar sort of vein. I guess the next question for me was, when did you start to realize the music was kind of just becoming more than a fun thing to do, and it could actually be a bit of a serious endeavor?
Probably, I don't know. I never consciously thought about that. But probably But to be honest, probably after like I posted that first track, I was like, I want to do this. Like, I didn't really think like, yeah, this is going to be my job. But like, I guess after a few tracks, I kind of thought maybe I could actually do something with this. But yeah, no, it never went through my mind, to be honest.
Did it take like the kind of almost, not validation, that's not the right word, but like did it take those numbers to come through, like the high listener numbers, for you to go, oh, okay, there's actually an audience for this, like I could make something of it? Or were you quite confident from the outset, like, no, I know my music is hitting a good standard now, like I'm pretty certain that I could go somewhere with this?
I guess, honestly, I think it's probably even before I put any tracks out, I think I just thought to myself, I was like, I'm literally just like obsessed. I can't think of doing anything else. Like I can't, even now I can't imagine, I literally cannot imagine what I'd be doing if it wasn't making music. So I guess it was just like, I don't know. It was almost something like I don't want to do anything else, and like I'm gonna make sure I make it work so I don't have to do anything else.
I think a lot of people find themselves in that boat. But yeah, that's one of the things I remembered about those little studio sessions, is that I like, one of my biggest problems with music is I've always been very lazy with it. Like that was a part of the reason why I never really started to get professional sound until maybe even like the last couple of years, really, because the kind of the craft work, the less fun stuff. So like really getting down into the details of a track, or like making sure a sound is perfect, or like the drums are the precise sound. Like you were always very good at just honing in on those processes, and you just wouldn't stop until you got them done. I mean, I remember you telling me the Let You Go remix, like you literally just worked through the night. You were done at like 6 a.m. I was like, oh yeah, I've done 6 a.m. studio sessions before, but the last 3 or 4 hours just descend into like complete like non-productive madness, whereas you were like, no, I was like, I had to get this thing finished. Like,
I mean, that was one. I mean, I'd done a few of those at uni and stuff, and I'd had like lectures and classes the next day, and it just didn't go. And I said to myself, I can't do this anymore, because like I did it a couple of times where I just worked all through the night, and I'd listen to what I did in the morning, it would be just sound like shit, and I was just like, fuck, this is bad. But then on this one, I remember it, like the sun coming up, I'm like, oh no, I've done it again. But then I listened back like a few hours later after I'd like slept for a couple of hours, and I was like, this is actually all right. But going back to what you said about like details and stuff, like, yeah, I have absolutely no problem with like going through kick drum samples for 2 hours and finding the exact one. And like, I think I can't explain it any other way apart from literally, I'm just like obsessed, like, with everything about making music, like to the point where like I'd rather do it over like doing anything else, to be honest. Like it's like it never feels like a chore. Well, some if I have to do tasks for other people that I don't want to do, maybe, but like generally with my own stuff, it's like it never feels like a chore. Like I never have to be like, oh, come on, let's go make some music. It's like, it's usually I need to stop making music now because I'm just like, it's impacting on my sleep.
I need to eat. I need to sleep. Like some basic bodily function.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I remember Jaws. I watched like a talk that Jaws did for JBL. Maybe like a year ago, and he was saying the same thing. Like, I don't know how like familiar with him you are. You may have even met him. I've never know who you've actually met in the industry and like hung out with or what.
I haven't met Jaws.
No, but he was basically saying the same sort of thing. He was like, because he went to Icon Collective, which is obviously a music school in Los Angeles, and he was saying the same thing. He was like, honestly, I was just obsessed with like making this work. He was like, I was staying longer than everyone else. Like when everyone else went home at the end of the day, I was staying for like an extra 3 hours because their studios are like open 24/7, I guess. So he would literally stay until like 2-3 in the morning, and then he'd be back there at like 8 o'clock, sometimes 9 o'clock. Like, and he was like, crazy. I know it's not healthy, but I had this vision and I wanted to just get stuff done. and
Yeah.
he attributes that to like being a major part of his success. So
Yeah, I
it's
probably
awesome
agree with
that
him.
you kind of have the same traits, I guess. What was the actual process of dropping out of university for you? Like, obviously, that's a big life decision for anyone,
Yeah.
let alone someone who's doing it to go into the unpredictable world of music, right?
Yeah.
Like, how did that process go? Was it a difficult decision? Was it kind of a no-brainer? Like, what did your parents think? Like,
It was kind of a no-brainer actually, because I didn't do very well. So, but I completely attribute that to the fact that I was making music literally 24/7, and I wasn't going to lectures. And
I think I saw you in the library once. When I was there.
I do remember that. And even then, I was just
I was like, "What are you
wasn't
doing
working.
here,
I was just
man?" Like-
on my laptop making music.
Yeah.
It was kind of absurd, really. But was it a difficult decision? I think it should have been, but like, I think at the time it was the only decision because like everything went so bad. But I wasn't. It didn't even faze me for a sec. Like, I think it's probably because I was just like, I don't know, but it didn't even. I was like, yeah, okay, I'm just gonna drop out. Like, because like I just didn't enjoy it. Like, it clearly like dawned on me the fact that like what I enjoy doing is making music. And my parents have said that like through the year. They're like, oh, maybe have you ever thought about like going to school for music instead? And I was like, oh, don't be silly, like. Or like, and some of my friends would be like, have you ever thought about that? I was like, nah, you can't. That's ridiculous. But then like it kind of got to the stage where I was like, oh, I mean, I felt really badly, and then my parents were like, okay, well, take a gap year to like see what kind of like figure out what you want to do, see if you want to do this music thing. If not, you can apply for another course. Like, so I did that, and then I didn't. Literally, like within a day, like university wasn't even on my mind. It was just like music,
Yeah,
like 100%.
just straight flipped over.
Yeah, so that's kind of what happened with that, to be honest. But yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah. Well, it's good that it was like a bit of a seamless process, because I imagine there's probably quite a lot of other people who might even be in the same. I mean, obviously with coronavirus, it's different. Like, people are stressing about different educational stuff. But even like a year ago, you know, and the years before that, there'll always be people, I think, in a similar boat where maybe they're at the end of their first year, maybe they're signed up for uni, but you know, a couple of their tracks have blown up the previous summer before they start, and they're like, shit, do I want to do this? Like,
that would be a trickier decision in my opinion. Like, if I was actually doing well at uni, and I had a track that was like kind of, well, actually, you know what the thing was, is like I hadn't even posted. I think I think I'd failed badly before I'd even posted any tracks. Like, the music thing wasn't even like an option when I failed. I just failed bad. So like I didn't actually have a choice. So I was I can't really return, like, unless I reapply.
Yeah. Fuck that, right?
So I was just like, I'm just gonna give it a rest.
Yeah. No. Oh, fair enough. I thought maybe it was predominantly because of the music. I didn't realize it was because you were bailing so bad. I knew you had a tough course.
That's obviously the reason that but the music was the reason that I didn't reapply to go to university or even try again. Because I mean, I actually could have done, like, I had a few people being like, oh, we'll help you get like back in on like a different course or whatever. And I was just like I had so many people, because obviously I was like good at hockey, and like the coach was like, oh, I'll help you figure it all out and everything. And I had like different people from like departments are like, yeah, okay, we'll help you, like whatever. And then I was just like, okay, but I couldn't really ask, to be honest.
Did you just feel like any option to get back into uni would just be almost like, I don't know, like almost kidding yourself, like, well, music's what I want to do. I've made this progress. What's the point?
I just couldn't do it anymore. Like, university just wasn't for me.
No, basically. Fair enough. What were your parents like on that decision? Were they supportive, or were they?
They were really supportive, yeah.
Yeah,
because
awesome.
I think they realized clearly that this is something I didn't enjoy at all, and music was something I really enjoyed. I think it kind of they were just really supportive, and and whatever. And then I'd posted a few remixes, and then I had a few people starting getting in contact with me. So that was a point where I got like a few remix requests from like people from like Sony emailed me.
Awesome.
Like one
Just
of the
casually, you know?
Yeah, and then I showed it to my parents, and they're like, "Oh wow, this is like clearly there's some like interest here." And so I remember at the time, like Refune, like Sebastian Ingrosso's label, they were really like keen on like hearing more stuff, which was cool. And then I kind of realized, I was like, oh, maybe I can. Maybe that was the kind of point. I was like, oh, this could work.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good you had those markers. Like, that's probably a difficult point when you're like, oh, mum and dad, like, I want to do this. And they're like, okay, like, they're obviously supportive, but they're like a bit worried. But then they see, you know, Sony Music messaging you or, you know, any other big label. And they're like, oh, okay, like, there's actually, you know, there's kind of confirmation that this is hopefully going to go well for you. So that's awesome. Exactly. What was that post-uni period like? Like you said earlier, was it just very much so you just, right, this is my life now. I'm into music, like, here we go, I'm gonna just work on production and just get cracking? Or was there a bit of like, did you have to like find yourself, or like, you know, how did that period go?
I'm trying to think. I just think I didn't look back. Like, I literally just, nothing, for me anyway, nothing had changed. Like, the whole year I was mainly just making music anyway. The same,
but at home.
And then literally I just kept on going.
Yeah.
It didn't stop. And I was always trying to like, I was literally so focused on like making music and whatever, that there was no like, I'd already found myself, like I knew what I wanted to do, and that was music, and I just put every waking minute and just all my focus into it, I think.
Yeah. How long did it take you to actually start making an income through like that production process? Was it a couple of months, or did it take you like a good year?
Quite a while. It probably could have been quicker if some like the official remixes I did came through, but I mean, it could have, yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think.
A while, basically.
Yeah, it did take a while.
Yeah.
Which is why, yeah, I think I was fortunate at the time just to be like just like living at home.
Yeah, minimal bills and that kind of stuff definitely helps.
Yeah, but I think, yeah, it wasn't like instantaneous. I mean, yeah, it was a while as well.
Yeah. I definitely struggle with that. So I obviously went through and finished my degree, but I had no plans of like jumping into a job like all my friends were. So I did a business degree, right? I know you did like, was it politics or something? Like something quite hard, yeah. But I had no intentions really of using that straight away. Like I wanted to just dive into my music, and that was one of the big stresses in my life at the time. Like I'd moved back home. I felt like I was kind of missing out a bit because a lot of my friends had moved into London. Like they were obviously working, but they were having like quite a lot of fun and living that kind of part of life. And then I was just running down my bank account. Like I was like, you know, just, I had no income for at least 4 or 5 months, and I was just running it down. I found that really stressful. And then I got some part-time work at Anderton's to kind of offset that. But yeah, that's why I asked that question, because I know that can really impact the kind of process and what you're doing, because money, unfortunately, like is always a concern when it comes to like creative careers and stuff. My next question was, obviously you mentioned like people were approaching you at that time, people were, you know, getting in touch with yourself. Was that how you built that initial music network? Because I always remember you telling me like you didn't have a music network, right? You were just doing this music by yourself, and then it started to build kind of around you. Is that kind of fair to say?
So, a lot of people got into contact with me, but I think a lot of the relationships that were quite useful, I actually like got in contact and pestered other people. Like,
Oh, okay.
I remember there's this like Dutch DJ duo called The Hymn, and I used to send them tracks like every week. Like I'd be sending them like 2 or 3 tracks a week, and often they just wouldn't reply. And then I just keep sending them, and literally just like, hey, have you listened to this? I think you should. I think it's really good. And then the reply was like, actually, this is pretty good. And then they had like a SoundCloud page or whatever with some like followers on it, like separate to their like other one. It's like one of those creator kind of like pages, which they released some tracks on, and they're like, okay, we'll release one of your remixes on there. And it did really well. It was like a remix, like completely unofficial, like completely unofficial remix, and it was for Adam Lambert, Ghost Town.
Yes,
and
I
then
remember that.
it just so happened that Adam Lambert found it when Adam Lambert was, like relevant. But sorry, Adam, if you definitely won't.
I'm sure he won't listen to this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he won't, which is good. But yeah, he found it and like retweeted it and shared it, everything, and that really helped. Just kind of like the fact that like, oh wow, like big people are like fucking with this guy, like shit's like, maybe should I pay attention? But I can't actually remember your original question.
Oh, it was just how you kind of built your network, and
oh,
it sounds like
right,
it was
yeah. So I'd just be like sending my tracks off to like different people and different DJs and whatever, and basically that kind of like really like forged a lot of my my connections. I think so much like comes from just like being persistent. Obviously, I mean, it's tricky. Obviously, you've got to have good music and you've got to contact the right people. But I think one, it's just like you got to be really, really persistent and like really like thick-skinned. And because I mean, I remember when I first put out my track, like that first remix, I just sent off like probably like 200 emails. I think I got like 3 replies.
Yeah, it's like that.
So it's hard.
It is like that. It's interesting you mentioned that kind of, so what I do as a day job now is like lead generation. It is like that process, but within business. So not not with music, although a lot of the stuff I've learned through my day job I can apply to my business, and I have been. And it is that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like so outbound, it's called outbound marketing, right? That's a real key component of getting yourself off the ground, because you're not going to have that inbound interest initially. Like no one knows where you are.
Of course.
Yeah, no one knows where you are. No one has heard your music. No one also has really any way of finding it, unless you've gotten really lucky and someone stumbled upon it, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's also not spamming. That's the thing I think a lot of like new producers get wrong, is that they spam stuff, and it's not very good as well. I think you need to have quality content. You need to have a good product. Essentially, you're selling right online almost. You need to have a good product, which is your music, and then you need to be very targeted with who you're sending that to, not just spamming it to like any name you can find. It needs to be like the right people, even just genre, right? The vein and the DJs. Yeah. And that's where you're hopefully going to see some success.
There's no point you making like, well, I guess I'm going to say there's never no point, but like, I mean, you got less chance of like getting your like tropical house track to like a dubstep DJ.
Yeah. Exactly. But like they might,
you've got less chance of getting a tropical house track to anyone right now, but like,
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, you get what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. And you're so right on the thick skin and the rejection point of view. I think some people sometimes come in, especially like younger producers who maybe haven't had much experience with like rejection, or dealing with people who don't think their music is just sick, right? Because you see this on all the like talent shows, right? Like Pop Idol and whatever the latest ones are, and like people go on, they've been gassed up by friends and family for like God knows how many years, and then they go on and then they're like, what the fuck, this is terrible. Like, and then they're not ready to deal with that. They're like in denial, or they're like get angry. So I think that's a word, like if any of like the kind of newer producing generation are listening to this, that would be our advice, I think, is like just have a thick skin, know that you're going to have to send a lot of communications before you're going to start to build traction. Like, it's just part of the process. Like, it's just got to be done. So I guess the next question I had really was a bit more production focused. So like,
cool.
Obviously I mentioned before, when I work with you, you're super laser focused on the kind of graft work. And I wondered, do you have kind of like a process that you follow, either in your mind or like one that you've developed and written down somewhere when it comes to making a track? Is it like I'm sorting the drums out, then I'm sorting the melody out, or is it a bit more organic and it kind of just takes form as you go?
Usually I have an idea in my head, whether it's like a melody in my head I've got like that I kind of like came to me, or I heard a track and was like, wow, that's sick, I need to do something like that. Or and I'll just lay down the melody. It's hard. I don't know, it's quite hard to explain it. Like,
yeah, I guess it's something maybe you don't consciously think about, right? You just kind of get on with it.
Yeah, I just do it. But if I'm trying to break it down, I'd definitely just start with the melody, and kind of like build it out, and then I'd add the drums. Kind of whatever would fit, to be honest.
Yeah. But no definitive process really, just kind of.
Usually it would be like the lead melody with the chords. The chords are the most important thing for me. Like, they obviously drive the emotion of the track like entirely, just like the mood of it, I guess. And so like, yeah, the chords and the melody, and that's what would really like spark a track idea for me. But then also like a good chords, a good melody, and then like a cool sound as well. And then I can go from there. Then I'll probably add the drums. Drums are so important for me. Like all the sounds, like every single sound has to like there's no like perfect drums. Like drums kind of just they work with like certain other like you might have this really bright kick, but it's not gonna work with like certain like claps or like snares. Like every drum kind of like fits into it. Like, I mean, some drums are shit, but like it's like every kind of like drum kind of fits almost into like a kit, and it has to all kind of like match. So it's not like I've found the best kick in the world. Like so it might be the best kick in the world for like progressive house or like tech house or something. I don't know. But yeah, you gotta kind of make all your drums kind of like fit cohesively together, and then then everyone's like, oh, the drums are tight. Because I mean, you listen to like some of Flume's tracks, and like if you listen to some of the sample, like obviously like that mixtape you released like last year, you listen to some of the samples on their own, they're like, wow, this is really weird. Like you just couldn't fit it into like one of your own tracks, but together, like with all his, how do you mix them all together? Kind of like it really does fit.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah, so it's kind of got to be contextual, right? You know, like you said, there's no drums can sound sick by themselves, but are they going to work in that genre, in that track?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. I had a bit more of like a topical question actually. Like obviously,
sure.
We're kind of almost out of lockdown in the UK. Like it's still a thing. There's still restrictions and stuff. But I just wondered, because I know you've done a lot of work in actual studios. I know you travelled up to Manchester quite a bit. I think you said maybe you travel to London every now and again as well. Yeah. And then obviously like you do your trips over to Los Angeles to do writing and production over there. And I imagine a lot of those environments are very much, you know, it's you and a bunch of other creatives in a room or, you know, in a studio kind of working on stuff. And then, you know, there'll be some, you know, solo or remote work, so to speak. But I imagine obviously like moving forward, do you think production is going to become like a predominantly solo activity or like a bedroom production activity, or do you think like where do you think that's gonna change? Because I know obviously like some of the biggest songs in the world are people all in the same studio vibing, kind of working together and doing their thing. It's not isolated, you know, I'm going to do this bit, then you do this bit, and sending files back and forth and stuff.
I think it depends. I think it, to be honest, like, I mean, right now with like coronavirus, my view is everyone's just gonna have to get on with it at some point, because I'm not a scientist, but I've spoken to my doctor friends, and they're just saying like it'd be over way quicker if it was more deadly. because it would just kill more people and they wouldn't be able to pass it on. I think it's something we're gonna have to live with, and I think we'll get over it. And then I think kind of like studios will go back to normal. I mean, like I'm working with people. Well, I've agreed to work with people who like in the studio down in London. Maybe it's like in a month's time or something. I think if you're happy with the people like you're working with and whatever, like that's absolutely fine. But I think, to be honest, I think it works both ways. Like often, it could be. I mean, I don't really know if I've got an answer to that because I literally don't know. But I think it's a balance. Like sometimes, like some producer will whip up some track in his room, but like more often than not, like if you're actually getting like a really big song cut, like generally you've got more chance of like being in the room with the artist. But I mean, in terms of like I guess like more like pop and like hip hop's more like, because I've been making loads of beats recently, and like it's kind of like 50-50. Like you've definitely got more chance if you're in the studio with the artist playing in beats, but I mean equally there's probably more examples of people just like sending beat packs and just on stuff they've worked on in their bedroom, and big artists cutting them. And then I think predominantly in like the dance world, that's a way more like solo focused kind of like craft. I think unless you're collaborating with other producers, which I don't really do that much, to be honest, but I want to more in the future, then I think that's just really is like very solitary, to be honest. I think more than any other genre, if I'm being honest, because often you're sampling vocals, so you don't need a vocalist, and it's kind of like you could make the whole thing yourself. So yeah, in answer to your question, I think it's always been like that, to be honest, but I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And also like what I found, especially like since we did a few production sessions and stuff, is that you quite often come up with different stuff with other people present. Like even if that person isn't like literally at, the computer or at the desk, working everything. Because I remember when we were producing, I think the last session we did was like 3 years ago now, and I still wasn't. I hadn't used Logic that much to that point. Like I then went through a period of time where I was using it like full time and learnt it quite well. But I was like, it was much quicker for you to just get on the PC and just run with stuff. And I would just be giving you almost like a running commentary, like just, that works. Oh, let's try this. Oh, let's do that. I find
that so helpful, and it really speeds up my process because I'm pretty good at like listening to someone else's music. I think this is I think the same for most people, but like it's a lot easier to like listen critically to someone else's music. But when you've made it yourself, you're almost like too close to the art to like be completely objective about it. So I think that's like one thing which I really do find useful, just like having someone else in the room to like just to be like, oh, that's cool. Because I might be going through sounds, I'm like, I don't know about this, and they're like, no, that's sick. And then you're like, oh yeah, it kind of is actually. So I definitely think it's one of those things where like I like having people I trust, like whose ears like I trust. So I like having other people in the room, to be honest.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like, and like you said, even when you make a track yourself, like you're so like I had this a lot at the beginning. I'm grateful for you doing this, where I'd just make stuff. I'd have like a few friends who would listen to it and they'd be like, yeah, that's dope. And then that would be it. That'd be like my confirmation done. Whereas when I start to send you those tracks, you instantly start to be like just very objective with them and be like, mate, you've got the same kick throughout like all your tracks here. Like this, like there's a huge frequency build up around like 400, 500 hertz, like all this stuff that I was just ignoring and like not getting on with, and that really quickly like led me to work on those problem areas. Because like I said, I think when you're so close to your music, it's very difficult to kind of pick holes in it and do the stuff that needs to be done. And sometimes like a third party ear from someone, like you said, who you trust and you trust their musical ability can really help you make some progress on that front. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. I wanted to ask what working in Los Angeles is kind of really like, because I've done I did like some very, very minor work when I went over there. And also like I've done production with people online, right, from Los Angeles, but I wanted like what it's like actually working in the music industry and kind of doing writing and production once you're over there.
Yeah, well, I guess most of my sessions, like being in the room with people, have been over in LA, so it's good. I mean, to be honest, when I'm in the room, like I'm kind of just like really into the like the session and the music, so like it could be anywhere, to be honest. But I mean, just the whole vibe of like being in LA definitely makes me more creative, I think. I don't know whether it's like the nice weather or
it helps.
Whether yeah, I think it probably does. I think that's like a definite positive. And I think also the vibe is like a lot of like hustle. So like you also, well, I think it was LA, there's a lot of partying and then there's a lot of people hustling. So you've got to make sure you know, stay focused and don't get like drawn into that kind of scene. So there are a lot of distractions, to be fair. But when I'm working there, yeah, I really like it. I think because it's just like access to so many different people. I think that's like the main thing. I mean, like right now I'm kind of in the countryside in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I'm probably the only producer ever to come out of my town.
Yeah. Mate, it took me 3.5 hours to get there.
Yeah. So it's like, oh shit. I think basically it's just you've got access to like all the creative people you kind of need. And if you want to do a session with someone, like, yeah, you just hit them up and just like, oh, you're in LA. Oh, cool. I'm in LA too. Like it makes it really, really easy to get in the room. And also like making connections with people. That's like a huge thing.
Yeah. Networking and stuff.
It's so much more valuable to make a connection in person than like over an email. Like it's just infinitely more valuable.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and going back to your point about like the environment being a bit more inspirational, I definitely found that like there's almost like a sense of just like a creative buzz. Like even if you're not hanging out with that many creative people, like obviously it's a place that's been built on the arts and people being creative and succeeding in those respective fields. And then for someone like yourself who's a bit more involved and has those network, like those connections in their network, like you said, you have access to like some of the best writers, best songwriters, best vocalists, like it's just talent in abundance. And there's a real like, I guess there's also like a competitive side to it as well, because there's so many of those people in the same space.
I was about to say that, yeah.
And I'm sure you've like probably gone over there and heard like other people's music that they're working on. You're like, oh shit, like I need to add this, or I need to like step up on this front, or like.
That's the best thing for me. Like if I hear someone be like, if I hear something which is like actually good and I'm like, oh shit, like someone's, I need to step up my game. Like, that's like the best thing for me.
100%.
I think that creative, like competitive environment's really, really good and healthy.
Yeah, for sure, man. And like I said, that's part of how I started to improve as well. Like you were the first producer that I was kind of almost being not like the tracks themselves, but like my production standard to what you were working on. I was like, nah, like. So I'd be working on a song, I'd be like, where I'd normally draw a line, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds good enough. I'd be like, well, hang on a second, would this hold up if, I send this to Aaron, or like compared to your latest song? And that bar really, really helps you get better, because when you're working in isolation, you've got no reference points. And that's another reason why I think reference tracks are really important as well. And that's something that you taught me, like just the simple art of like grabbing one of your favorite tracks, or like a really big track of the time, and pulling it into your DAW, and grabbing either like the structure, or just like using it as a mixdown reference, or even just as like a vibe reference, like just having it in there is so important. And that's definitely something I would give as advice to like newer producers or people who are in that kind of beginner stage. Is such a key part of getting your tracks sounding professional and kind of moving them forward.
Yeah.
Awesome. I only really have like one more question, mate, to be honest, and I feel like that could potentially bring this to like a natural conclusion. We're just under the hour mark as well, so that would be awesome because then I can put it on Instagram stories and it won't go over, or not stories,
Right.
sorry, Instagram TV.
TV.
Yeah. And yeah, the final question really was just what does the future hold for you? I know it's quite a broad question, but like you mentioned there, you're doing some hip hop. I know you've spoken to me about doing more dance music, and you showed me like you've been doing not only like kind of modern progressive house, but also like some tech house and some techno and that kind of stuff. So yeah, like what's your kind of your plans at this point?
So my plan is to really just go for it with my kind of like my project, my DJ stuff. I'm ready to be an artist now. I've kind of done a lot of I did a little bit of stuff early on when I first posted my tracks. That was cool. It kind of like helped me meet a lot of people. Then I did a fair amount of stuff like other people. I was kind of just like figuring stuff out. And now I'm like 100% ready to do my own thing. So I'm going to be releasing music. And yeah, just like putting out tracks. And I guess my sound is going to be just going like house music. Because I mean, I guess this is like, it could tie into like the general sphere of like dance music right now. I think kind of like from like I guess like 2012 to 2015 was like the first wave of like dance music and like of EDM in the form of like it was like house music was like the house tempo was definitely like the most prevalent. And then I think in the EDM sphere particularly from like 2016 to like 2019, we definitely saw a shift in like trap and future bass and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of merged into pop as well with like the Chainsmokers like really driving that one. So I think that's over now pretty much. And I think the sound's definitely going to be drawing from more like underground kind of like genres and stuff like it's absurd like techno like recently is just absolutely like booming like it's absurd like it's like really quietly just like started blowing up like in those kind of communities. But and I think also like just house music in general is just back. Like people people just don't give a shit anymore about like that kind of like pop crossover like Chainsmokery kind of sound, particularly from like 2016 anyway. So like I feel like dance music is heading in a more just like almost like underground kind of like wave, but like just definitely like house music. So yeah, I don't know if you had any more like questions on that.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and I guess actually as a like final question just on from that, like do you think that is the kind of next step for dance music, like moving back to the underground? Like it's obviously with EDM it had that kind of blast into the mainstream and it was getting radio plays, and then you had even more mainstream, you had like Chainsmokers doing like almost straight up pop, right, but with just some EDM influences I guess. And then do you think now it's kind of going to go back to where it came from, like kind of like the underground, but it's going to be more universally accepted maybe amongst that kind of EDM crowd?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, a general shift in music over the last few years has been that it has got less poppy in general. Like the pop music today is basically it's just hip hop.
Legit.
And like the pop music that is pop music is just nowhere near like Katy Perry and Kesha and Taylor Swift of like 2012. So like I think that general shift really is like driving just music in general, and I think the like resurgence of like underground music is really going to be prevalent in the next few years. So like I mean like tech house was already kind of like blown up with people like Fisher and whatever. I think in America as well like house music's really about to boom, like really boom. I guess you've always got like the commercial side, so you got like the like the I'm in Beck remixes and like the what else is popular? I don't know. Like in the UK, you got like Joel Corey, who's like actually doing quite well. But honestly, I mean, in the UK especially, like there's so many like just house tracks just like popping up. You got like the Medusas and like people like that, which you're gonna like. It's a way more commercial spin on it, but like house music is back. It's just like it's really, really doing well. And yeah, I think yeah, the underground's definitely gonna be like quite important in the next like few years, I think, and a lot of people are gonna kind of like go to that because I, for one, anyway, like I feel like I've usually got a good sense on like what's popping right now, and I think that definitely the people like who liked EDM before, it's kind of like I kind of guess a little bit sick of it now, and they're kind of like delving into like new kind of forms of like dance music, and I think like techno and like proper like house music are definitely both like things that people will gravitate towards, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Like I even amongst my like friend group, right? I've noticed people who had no interest at all in dance music prior has like starting to, you know, show me really cool underground stuff that they found on Spotify or is coming up in their Discover Weeklies or their release radars, that kind of stuff. And
yeah,
it's cool, man. It's nice. Like I got into dance music when I was like 15, probably actually a bit earlier than that, 13, 14.
What was your kind of like first track that made you kind of think, oh wow, this is so sick?
Probably ages ago, mate. Like really, really long time ago. So I used to, and we'll carry on for a bit. Like that little precursor earlier, where I was like, we can wrap it up. That was just the natural, you know, like I'd run out of questions, but let's carry on. I guess we used to go on holiday, right? We used to go to Portugal. And it was a family friend's villa. This is very specific, but there's a point to it. There's a family friend's villa who we used to rent out each year of like my childhood, like from age 5 up until probably about age 9, age 10, something like that.
Yeah.
And they had Sky, you know, like, isn't the TV provider Sky over there? And that was back when that was not common, really. Like over in the UK, like even Freeview and like, I guess the Americans listening won't understand what I'm talking about. Basically, Sky is almost like cable TV, but it's satellite. So it's satellite TV. So it was the first thing you could get in the UK, really, where you could have more than, I don't know, like 5 or 10 channels, right? So you had all these other channels that you couldn't get on normal TV. And one of them was Clubland TV. And it was literally just music videos. Music video TV channels. I used to be all over back in the day, like even before.
Back then it was like kind of
oh mate,
150 like 4 on the floor kind of shit.
Literally, like I have a playlist on my Spotify that comes out of pre-drinks sometimes, and it's just like all that old Clubland stuff, like Ultra Beat and Scooter and like.
Yeah, I don't know. I just never got into that. I mean, I did hear a lot of that kind of stuff. Just like it just never really got me. But like I can, I guess when you're young, you kind of like. Yeah, no, I feel like there's maybe a few songs, maybe like what was it, Cascada or something?
Yeah, Cascada. Yeah. I think it was.
Right.
I think it was more for me. It was just so different. Do you know what I mean? Like that stuff wasn't really in the charts. Chart music was very. I mean, if anyone remembers, like what the early 2000s was like in terms of pop music, it was very pop. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't even pull specific examples out of my head, but it was.
I mean, I'm literally only just remembering this now, but like I remember, like I can only remember like I can vaguely like Take That.
Yeah, that's an example. Yeah, and like just extrapolate that out, right? You know, very, very polished, very pristine pop music, and that's kind of what was all over the radio. Like you didn't really hear dance music. In fact, that era was really funny because that was when Top of the Pops was still a thing, and Top of the Pops. There you go. I was going to say, like, Top of the Pops famously, obviously, even the real bands would all mime their tracks, but then you'd get the first wave of, like, DJs and producers because their tracks would get into the charts, right? And the Top of the Pops would always bring whoever, like regardless of what they did or how that music was made, they'd bring them on for a live performance. And mate, like I'll send you some of the videos because they're so funny. Because it like, you know, some of those early house tracks would have like a sample, like a vocal sample that's like 4 words, right? And it's just a house track all the way through, like nothing changes. And they'd try and like play it off live, mate. And they'd have like a guy behind like a really old looking computer and like another guy like pretending to play synth. Then they'd have like a vocalist like pretending to sing that one sample for like all of 4 minutes. Mate, it's so good. I'll send you a clip. They're so funny. But yeah, to answer your question, it was kind of that. It was like Clubland TV, and then I guess when I was probably about 11, I bought like a trance compilation, and that kind of got me into that side of things. And then like moving forward, like I know you've always commented that a lot of my chord choices and like the vibe of a lot of my stuff is very like almost like happy hardcore influence. Like it's very like the melodies and stuff. Like I've dialed that back. I've worked on dialing that back a bit because like it's a little bit, it doesn't kind of work so much with a lot of other genres. Like it just sounds like rave music slowed down, right? But yeah. Literally. So I've had to like wean myself out of that a bit. But that was a huge influence. Like when I was about 15, I got my first decks. And I was making that kind of music, really into that kind of music, and I actually made some headway as well. So people like Darren Styles and Gamma and a few other people who are now, you know, really big in a bit more of an EDM kind of way, especially Gamma. You know, Gamma's like doing dubstep and he's doing much more EDM stuff. Like I was actually like talking with those guys back in the day because I was only like 15. They were like, "Whoa, that's cool," but I never really followed through on the happy hardcore side because I wanted to. What's that, mate?
I said that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's weird, man. Like I have DMs from Darren Styles from like 2010 in my Twitter somewhere, like just saying, "Oh, can you send me this remix?"
That's mad because I don't think I'd even discovered dance music by 2010.
Yeah, no, legit, mate. And it was so polarizing at school as well because everyone was into like R&B and stuff at the time. Like if you remember, like R&B Akon and like Jason Derulo and it all had that like hip hoppy, like trappy kind of beats and everyone was like, trance music, what the fuck is that? Or like I'd play them a house record and they'd be like, this is so boring, it's so repetitive. But then those same guys now will be the ones that go into like, you know, fucking Elbow or Creamfields and, you know, oh, this is sick. It's funny how it comes around, to be honest. But
no, it is.
Yeah, man, that's kind of how I got into it. So on music production and that side of things, like, do you think there is an importance to what DAW you pick nowadays? Because I know you've had a bit of experience with a few of them now. You're initially in Logic, you're now in Ableton. I remember showing you FL Studio and you were like, what the fuck is this? Like,
well, I do actually. Okay, it doesn't make a difference to like, no, that's wrong. It does make a difference. Like obviously like people are like, oh, the sound quality is like, that's bullshit. Like they all sound the same.
I used to be so concerned with that. I used to ask you about that, I remember.
No, I think also just it's not notable if there is a difference anyway. But I think it makes a difference like what kind of music you're making. I mean, for example, like I used to use Logic and I've swapped to Ableton now. And then sometimes I'm going back into Logic for like certain things and it's just so awkward and slow to operate. Just like moving blocks of like MIDI and stuff is literally just like, it's draining. It's just like, it's tedious. But the Ableton's just so fast. Like I think anyone making like any form of like dance music should definitely use Ableton just because it's like all arranged in blocks. So it's just really intuitive. So I definitely think that Ableton is the way to go. I mean, like there's other things in hip hop like FL Studio. It's just absurdly quick to get shit down. So like, it's different for different genres. I think obviously like if you're making like rock or something where like most stuff's recorded in Pro Tools or something's probably, or Logic's probably better. But honestly, I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with different DAWs. I've only used Logic and Ableton, but Ableton is like, there's a reason most people use Ableton basically. Yeah,
legit. I think that gives you like enough experience to make a judgment call on that because like I've used pretty much all of them and Cubase, Cubase is very similar to Logic and that's very similar to, I'm trying to think of the other ones now. I know Bitwig is obviously very similar to Ableton, so they're kind of in the same vein. But the big one for me was swapping out of FL Studio and moving to Ableton. Because by that point I'd only really used FL Studio, and then
I just don't know how you do mixing in FL Studio.
Yeah,
it's like an absolute nightmare.
100%, mate. And that's the biggest thing for me. Like, it's great. You can throw down stuff so quickly, and you can be really creative. And it was great for like overproduction, which is what I delved into before, where you were just like, there's so much going on because it's so easy, right? There's no channels that you have to like set up and properly route and stuff. You can just drag stuff onto that dashboard, I guess it's called. But mix downs were a nightmare because just everything was, unless you kept super organized with it. And
I just remember like you'd always like come over to mine and we'd do it in Logic. But I remember one time I came to yours, and I mean, you'd use Logic at school or something, so like you kind of knew what was going on. I remember like looking over your shoulder at FL Studios. Like, I can't even. I've got no idea what's going on here.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't think I can offer anything.
No,
like,
definitely.
I would agree. The fucking EQ in FL Studio is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Oh,
like,
the parametric EQ. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how you meant to see what's going on.
Yeah. It's
because you got to hear it. But,
it's shite. No, it's not. Like I think if you're starting out and you haven't picked a DAW, I would recommend Ableton for dance music, like you said, 100%. Like it's clip based, it's very easy to like repeat stuff and copy and paste, and also it's just so quick with the workflow and the way that the VSTs are organized visually. Like you can get a signal chain going. It's very good at teaching people how a signal chain even works, because you can visually see like it goes from this plugin, then it goes to this plugin, and then that kind of thing. And I just think that's a really solid bet. FL Studio, if you already use it and you're doing well with it, then more power to you. But like we said, the process of mixing and really getting a professional sound, I think, can be a little bit more challenging in FL Studio because it's so versatile and there's like very few limitations in place. But yeah, it's interesting you say that there's no, like you said, there's no real sound difference. So I think if you're dead set on one DAW, then there's no reason at all why you can't be making professional, top of the industry sounding tracks on it. I mean, like Madian uses FL Studio, for example, and he's like one of the craziest.
Martin Garrix uses FL. Like, there's like a wave of people who just use FL. It doesn't actually matter, but I think there are certain DAWs which do lend themselves more to. You can make it work on anything, but like I think it's easier in things like probably Ableton or to get the ideas down. FL Studio is great.
Yeah. I know there's producers out there who will use like a bunch of different DAWs. Like they might, like Excision, for example, like obviously the big dubstep guy, he makes different tracks in different DAWs. Like it's crazy. Like he'll just do one track in FL Studio, one track in Cubase, one track in Ableton. Like the guy is like, absurd. It's crazy. I'm like, why would you ever need? I
don't know why you'd ever do that.
Yeah. I don't know the reasoning behind it, but I guess it just proves a point that you can make, industry standard music in just about anything, really. I mean, you made Let You Go in GarageBand, didn't you? The remix.
That is true. I forgot about that. Yeah.
If you ever needed proof that you can make a track with millions of listens in the bare minimum, then GarageBand. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, literally.
So I mean, that would even be an advice from me to people who are like looking to get into music production. Like, if you have a Mac, then get GarageBand, start messing around with that, and see if it's something you enjoy, and then you can start making investments from then. You can get like a trial version of Ableton, for example, try that out for 30 days. And
I think that would influence my choice, actually. I think Ableton was quite expensive.
Yeah, that's a good point. So Logic, I know, well, from the last time I looked at it, I don't know what it is nowadays, but
quite cheap.
Yeah, it was like 200 quid, I think. So maybe was that like $250? And that's for like everything. That is for like all the native Logic plugins, which are really solid, like good reverbs, good compressors, like everything. And yeah, so I mean that's an option. It all depends on what kind of feels right to you. I'd urge anyone looking to get into a particular DAW, just try and have a try at it. I know Logic, there's no trial version from memory, but you can try GarageBand, and that's basically gives you a decent idea of what the workflow is like and stuff. Another question for you: what's a new plugin that you've started delving into recently that you really like, if there is one?
Oh, good question. Yeah, there is. There's this plugin called Soothe.
Soothe. I've heard of this. I don't actually know what it does. What is it?
It's insane. It's just changed the game for me. Basically, it's like an adaptive like EQ, but like it basically just reduces the harshness in a sound. It's really cool.
I'm gonna write it down because I've seen it pop up and like a lot of people are starting to use it, and I sometimes ignore that because I'm like, it's just another hype plugin because obviously there's millions out there.
I mean, I was watching a few live streams and from people, and I saw a lot of people using it. I was like, all right, I'll check it out, and it's really good. I got the trial and I bought it, but yeah, it was just so. Well, the thing is, I got the trial and I used it, but I was like, wow, this is really useful. And like the trial expired, I was like, fuck, I need this plugin, so I just bought it.
Yeah. I guess that's how you know a plugin's for you, right? The trial runs out and you're like, oh, this is actually, I need this.
Yeah, it was just like, you know, when you're like doing so much like surgical EQ, just like get rid of harsh frequencies, it's just like tedious. This one just like, it just dampens exactly where you need to.
Mate, I definitely need that.
Choose what the depth is on it. So like,
awesome.
It doesn't sound unnatural, so it's great. I like that one.
Awesome. I'm gonna check that out personally because I'm with you on that. Like I put out my last couple of releases. You'll put like a de-esser on a vocal, and then you'll maybe even put a multiband compressor or like a adaptive EQ on it. And for some reason, there's sometimes you just can't seem to get rid of the harshness. And I'm sure I could if I like really spent like a long time on it. But
yeah.
It's tedious.
Something I've been doing, de-essing, for example, I do it all manually now. Because de-essers, I don't like them. Like, well, actually, there's this really, I just got, oh, fuck, I keep knocking my mic. I just got this plugin called Isotope RX7. And like, it has the best de-esser on it. But I mean, they all kind of do the same thing. But generally, I don't like de-essers because they take away kind of like a lot of high end sometimes on stuff you don't want. So what I do, and I found this out from somewhere, is they do the de-essing manually, and they literally just volume automate. Honestly, so much of like mixing is just leveling and volume automation, but like they literally just like on the harsh frequencies to just duck the volume, and honestly, it's like it just works. It sounds so good. It's great. It'll take you like, if you do it quickly, it'll only take you a few more minutes, but it's so worth it on like a proper final. I mean, if it's like a rough vocal, just whack a de-esser on. But
yeah, for the actual mix.
Yeah, I'd do that. Yeah,
that's a really good point. Actually, I did a little bit of that when I found that de-essers weren't working. But if you listen to a raw vocal, quite often there won't actually be that many harsh. I mean, it depends how many S sounds and all that kind of stuff is in the recording. But there won't, like a lot of times, you only need that de-esser, like you said, for little moments where you'd be like, oh, like that's unpleasant, and then you can work on that part. But then the rest of the vocal doesn't need those frequencies dampened. And like you said, if you have like a well compressed, good sounding vocal, the de-esser is just running off a sidechain for those frequencies, right? So sometimes that's high end that you want. That's that kind of breathiness of a vocal, or like the airiness. Exactly. So I agree with you on that front, definitely. One that I've been using loads, and it's not super new, but it's going back to that point of frequency referencing. And I can't remember if you said you use it yet, or whether I learned this from a video, because the first A-Being tool that you showed me that I started using was Magic AB, which I know now is discontinued, I think, so I'm not sure you can even get that anymore. But there's a guy who used to work for that company who formed his own company, I think, and basically made one called Metric AB. Do you use that one at all?
No, I don't.
No. Oh, sure. Mate, I don't know if you still reference a lot or whether you need something for that, but like it is amazing. Like it's so good. Really? So like you can pull as many reference tracks in as you want. So like the same as it was in Sample Magic's AB.
Yeah.
But you can then automatically level match it, so it runs on the LUFS reading. So like if you've got a really crushed track and you're putting it in for a reference, it will automatically get it down to your level, so you can reference it properly. But then, mate, the different views you can get are unbelievable. So you can look at the two frequency charts mapped on each other. You can isolate each frequency part of the frequency spectrum. So yeah, so like if I think the low end of my track is struggling, I can pull in a track and just isolate the bass of my track and go back and forth between.
Does it cost much?
Yeah.
Oh,
it does.
It does cost much.
Oh, does it cost much? I think for what it is, yeah, that's why I said yeah. Like kind of, I don't know. I think I don't want to quote the price, 'cause I can't remember what it is, but I think it's over 200 quid.
Oh fuck! No
yeah,
chance.
yeah, it's not cheap at all. So I'd say if you really need it and you really find it very useful, like I do, then get it. If you don't and you think like pulling in a track and manually doing those functions, because the thing is you can manually do those functions. Like in Ableton, you can pull in a reference track, send it to bypass the master, for example. You
it's
can
like
send it.
I don't know why I've always been like this, but like if I can see these plugins that they do certain things, and I'm kind of like, okay, I could do that myself and I don't have to pay. Like
legit.
So like that,
it's time versus money a lot of times, I think.
Yeah, it can be, but also just like, have you heard of Endless Smile?
Yes. Dada Life.
So I saw that and I was just like, oh, that's kind of cool. But like, I've got no idea what's going on in the plugin. So I just made like an Ableton rack, which like did everything, just like added reverb, added delay, added like a filter. And you just got way more control. So I just made my own Endless Smile, which is kind of sick.
That's why I don't try and make the racks myself, mate, because I would probably make myself depressed with the amount of money I've spent on plugins that do that same stuff. But
yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, Endless Smile is one. That's basically like an infinite riser, isn't it? You can kind of turn any channel into almost like a washout riser and bring it back.
It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. I know, like in the dubstep world, Mastodon used to use that all the time. Like, but that's the problem with that plugin, is it's got a very signature sound. Like once you've heard it once, you know that that's being used.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, like it's interesting, and I used to talk to you about this all the time, because for the longest time ever, you were making really good music with essentially stock plugins. Like Nexus was like the only one I think you'd bought at the time, and then a lot of stock plugins. I think you eventually got OTT, and you were using that quite a bit. But beyond that, for a while, you weren't using that much more. I mean, like I said before, you made Let You Go in GarageBand, and I don't know what GarageBand has to offer, but it can't be that much, you know.
The Rain Harp is a classic selection.
But
it functioned as the majority of that lead. But yeah,
legit. But I think it just goes back to that. That kind of old saying is that it's not the tools really, it's the workman that's using them. That's not really a saying, but you get my point. Like,
no, yeah, I know what you mean. I think, yeah, it's just about how you use your sounds. But I mean, I'd still say like your drum samples have got to be like
on point.
On point.
Yeah. That's understandable. If you've got shitty drums, then you can't really polish a turd on that front. Like, you need good source material. I mean, we even had this conversation briefly on text recently. Like, I did some production coaching with a guy called Problem Child, who's sick, and has agreed to do a podcast with me as well. So I'll delve into that more. Awesome. But he came from a band-based background, so he was in a band called Neck Deep. They're a pop punk band, and they're super huge in that scene at the moment, and they have been. But he left because he wanted to start doing some electronic music, and he's only been doing it for like a year, I think, or maybe a little bit longer. And he's just, I mean, he lives in Los Angeles, so he's got the benefit of like hanging out with producers, like you said. But he was teaching me all this stuff, and I was running through, and I was like, bro, where's all the processing? Like, where's like all the little EQ touches and, you know, this and rebalancing of that? And he was like, mate, like for me, it's volume balancing and layering. Those are like the absolute foundations. Like, if you have the right sounds and you level them right, you like everything beyond that is to taste. It's like it's not a functional thing, right? And I've seen that in I downloaded a course from Dub Vision recently. They've done some like progressive house series.
Oh, was that good? I saw that advertised.
Yeah, that's really good, mate. I think they've done 3 now, and I think I've got 2 of them. But they're great. They just start a track from start to finish. They sort of do a running commentary of what they're doing, why they're doing it, and they're the same. And they always emphasize, you know, if you pick the right sounds from the beginning, you really want to get away with as little processing as possible, they said, because then you can focus on constructing a good track and a good idea without getting too much into like the sound designy and gritty elements of it, which can be a bit of an obstacle to a producer, you know, when you're trying to get stuff done. So that's really changed my view, mate. And I'm working on a track at the moment with a singer called Kappa, which I'm hoping to put out like either next month or the month after. And it's all just like level matching. It's that Chainsmokers-y one I sent you, where like it's all just layering and level matching and just picking the right sounds and stuff. Like, it's really interesting. And going back to your previous point, just real quick on the plugin side of things, I think the problem with a lot of these new plugins is it's a business. The plugin market is a business. It's people trying to make money. So oftentimes you'll get these really cool videos, very slick productions. They'll get people who've used the plugin once to endorse it, you know, because it's good for their marketing. So they'll get like some random mixing engineer who's worked on a Rihanna song one time to say, this is, you know, I can't live without this plugin. Like, this is the be all end all of my sessions. And that's great for their marketing copy. And then loads of people buy it and they realize, like you said, that you could just do that yourself. If you took a bit of time to delve into what it's doing. It's not always the case. Sometimes they're great, but like you said, a lot of times you can get the stuff done with stock tools, I think.
Absolutely.
What other music production questions could we delve into? What would be like if you had someone starting music production now, or like they've just gotten into it? What would be like your one tip that you would give them? Like, what was really crucial for you starting out that really helped you a lot?
Like when I was first starting out, probably don't bother with mastering. Like, just don't do it, because I think that like I got so hung up, and I think everyone does when they first start a track. They're like, oh yeah, but it's all about the mastering, really, isn't it? It's like, no, it's nothing about the mastering. It's all about just the track and the mixing. Like, mastering is like very something that just goes like as the end. It doesn't fix a bad song or a bad mix. So I'd say, I remember I listening back to like some of my, like, I think I figured that out like reasonably quickly, but I used to watch like mastering. This is when I've been producing like maybe a couple of months, like a month or so, and I maybe a couple of months, and I just be like, I just watched all these videos, put like 10 plugins on the master chain. I'm just like, this is probably gonna make it, and then it just sounds horrific. Usually you can get more natural sound of the fewer plugins you use, but honestly, don't fuck around with master. Like, now I literally just on my master, sometimes just a limiter. I mean, if I'm actually gonna master it, then I usually don't, because I fuck it up and I'm not very good at it. But I usually just put OTT on it, and then a limiter, Fab Filter Pro L.
Yeah, mate. And honestly, like, the industry guys do that. So like Skrillex will just have a limiter on his master. Like Joyride will just have a limiter on his master. Even people like Virtual Riot, who have very processed, very, you know, loud, big sounding mixes, again, will quite often only have that on the master, and they do that processing early on. And I agree with you, mate, because especially if you fall down the trap of thinking, oh, you know, my master chain needs to be sick and it will sound sick, you're not going to address the problems that you need to fix in order to get good mixes. And that's the pitfall I fell into for so long, because I was just whacking like Ozone, you know, on the end track and just putting a preset on and being like, that beefs up, that sounds cool, but it doesn't. It just, if you compare it to other tracks, it doesn't. It just sounds beefier to you because you've been working on a quieter mix, and then, you know, whack on like this Ozone plugin that has limiters and compressors. All right, that was episode 2 of the Discuss EDM podcast with myself, Matt Jadon, and my guest today was Hibell. Thanks for listening. I hope you got something from the podcast. I think there was some content in there for everyone, music fans and producers alike. And I especially like the music production tips and tricks section, because while he's very humble, Aaron is actually quite a successful figure in the music industry behind the scenes. So it's good to hear some insight into his workflows and processes on that front. If you want to support the podcast, you can follow me on Instagram, which is instagram.com/MattJadonMusic. You can listen to the podcast on just about everything: Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, all of that good stuff. And you can follow me on Twitter, which is Matt Jadon, Facebook, again, Matt Jadon. And if you want to support and follow Aaron, all of his socials will be listed under Hibell, which is Hibell. And if you type that into YouTube, you'll find some awesome music with very, very high view counts. And yeah, thanks for listening.